in the West we have this saying, when life sends you a lemon, then you make lemonade out of it. And many times, as we look at life, the lemons have been associated with things that you buy newly and they don't work. You buy a car, you got all kinds of mechanical problems, one after another. And you take it to fix it, another problem comes in, and it could be whatever make you might have had. And then someone says, oh, you got a lemon. You have other things happen to you with other instruments or appliances that you get. And it looks like repeatedly they don't work as they should. And when we look at life, we find that similar things happen to us at certain times of our life too. It seems like whatever we are trying to do is not working. It seems like everything is going wrong in our lives. And we just feel as if our life has become like a lemon. So what do you do with lemons? You make lemonade out of them. How do you do them? You put sweetener into it. And how do we take life and turn it around so that the difficulties of life are not difficult anymore, but they are such that we start to enjoy them or make good use of it. And if there's a difficult time or a difficult situation, and if we only keep on crying, and that's the time when our faith in God is also shattered, because we feel like God is busy with maybe other people and doesn't have time for us. Or maybe God is not aware of our difficulty. Maybe God is just doesn't care. We all go through phases like that. So how does one get oneself out of that situation? There's a very interesting story about a donkey. So this donkey was a mischievous donkey. So its owner, the farmer, was happy to have the donkey, but then he got into too much trouble. And so he would do mischief here, mischief here, mischief here. So all the animals got anti-donkey. They say, this donkey is creating so much difficulties for us, we can't live with this donkey. And so one day, as it happens, at night, unfortunately, as the donkey is coming home, he fell in a well and he started to cry. And the farmer had gone to bed, he was sleeping. And first all the animals said, he's just crying, he must be another trick, he's pulling on us. And so they didn't want to respond, and then he started crying out louder and louder and louder. So few animals went to see really what was going on and realized that he fell in the well. There's no way of getting him out. So they started to cry out loud too. And they came close to where the farmer was sleeping, and they cried and they cried, and the farmer got up. So as he got up, he's seeing all the animals are making a racket. So he comes out, and they lead him to the well. And he sees the donkey in there. And the donkey had been so much mischief, the farmer started to think, should I help him, should I not help him? And he says, this. Then he thought, how am I going to help him? Because the well is very deep. How do we get a donkey out of the well? And started thinking, he said, I should get some help. So he started calling his neighbors, and a few of the neighbors got together. And as they're collecting, and the neighbors have been very sick with the donkey. So they all decided, let's bury him. He's too much trouble. He's in the well already. Let's just bury him here, be done with him, because he's been creating too much trouble for us. So they brought their shovels and took the dirt, started putting in the well. The donkey was down, all of a sudden a whole amount of dirt comes on his shoulders. He said, whoa, what happened? And another shovel came. He realized that they want to bury me. So he's crying a lot more. And then, but his cries are not being heard, so he's finding that there's more dirt coming, more dirt coming, more dirt coming. So he starts to think, he's a clever donkey. He says, if I keep on crying, nothing's going to happen. So he starts to, all the dirt that comes on his shoulders, start to shake it off, and he used his feet to pound it down. So all the dirt that was coming in, he was pounding down. And these people, and it was pretty dark at night, so they're shoveling and shoveling and shoveling. And just before they feel they shoveled enough, he should be buried by now, they put another shovel and the donkey shows up at the head of there. He took a lemon, made lemonade out of it. He took a bad situation where, dirt was falling on him, and he used this to his benefit to get out of the well. And this is what happens to all of us. There are times when people at work, it looks like, are all against us. There are times when difficulties happen financially in our life. There are times when physically things are not working the body as they should, and we have great difficulties in the physical arena. There might be times when emotionally we are down because our relationships are not what we expect them to be. And how do we deal with them? Do we just, in those days, feel that God has forsaken us and our faith in God keeps on getting less and less and less? Or do we take everything that happens to us as a blessing of the Lord? And do we then have faith in God that the right things are bound to happen? When we look back at history, when we go through the teachings of the saints, when we read our scriptures, our faiths, we have many interesting anecdotes about how faith in God helps us pass through the difficult times of life. How, as a human being, we don't have the resources to truly understand what is happening, because we are aware only of what we can experience through our physical senses. And so based on our knowledge, based on what has happened to us in life, we interpret whatever is happening to us in that frame. There's a very interesting tale. It comes from the East. This is the story about a number of people who would live in a village. And in that village was a saintly person, and they would go to the saint for the blessings. They had a lot of faith in the saint, and many people in the village would get their blessings, do their work, and life was going on well. And then all of a sudden, an epidemic hit the village. The hens and the roosters and the chicken all started to die. This was a village, and their livelihood was based on raising chicken and hens and the roosters. And as they started to die, the people started to worry about how they're going to make a living. And so they went to the saint, and they talked about the difficulty that they're having making a living. And so after he listened to them, he said, "Oh, this is a blessing from God." And so they went home thinking, maybe there must be something good in it. And as they were starting to find ways and means of living, they realized that a week later another epidemic occurred. And all the dogs who were living in the village started to die. And one by one, all the dogs started to die. So they went to the saint. And they said, the dogs are dying. There are watchdogs. They take care. They're like taking care of the security. And, great difficulties have come to us. And so he listened and he says, "Oh, this is a great blessing from the Lord." And they started wondering, what is the great blessing from the Lord? Here our hens are gone, we can't make a living, our dogs are gone, we can't be protected. And as another week goes by, these were the times when we didn't have gas and we didn't have electric heat. So they would light fire by, having one fire going on, and they lit their fires early morning. And the next week, all the fires started to die out. So then they felt now we can't even light the fire because they had no mechanisms of being able to cook the food. And all the fires in the village went out. And so they went to the saint again. And they said, no, our fires are going too, so how are we going to eat? And in a difficult period, very great difficulties have come to everyone in the village. And he listened to them very carefully and says, this is a great blessing from the Lord. So they said, he's gone cuckoo. He's, every time there's a big problem, all he says is, this is a great blessing, this is a great blessing. We don't know what blessing it is. But as the story is told, the next day, there was like a ruthless king in the area who was to bring his people, and he would overrun the villages and bring his army and loot the people and take their possessions and keep on going. And so as the story is told, the next day the king was passing through this village. And he generally, when he saw a village, he would send his people to uproot the village. And he saw that this village is deserted. There are no dogs here, there are no hens here, nothing seems to be lit up. So he looked around, and as he's looking, so he tells his people, oh, this is a deserted village, let's go to the next one. And one of the people in the village who was kind of hidden in the bushes heard him, and he came back, and he, as that army had gone, he came back and told the people what happened. So we really don't know what is good for us. We just think that we know because of whatever our own intellectual level is, whatever experiences we've had. But what exactly is good for us is unknown to us. And so when a difficulty comes in our life, we succumb to the difficulty. We let that difficulty overpower our life so much that if the pain was supposed to be for 5 minutes, we make it last for days and days and days. Why do we do that? Because our faith in God is not as strong as it should be. If we realize that we're not the body, we're the soul, if we also realize that the soul is a part of God, then we will realize that within us is a part of the Creator, that God is with us at all times. Now, if we realize that God is with us at all times, then what is the question of any fear or any difficulty? Maybe our wishes are not in tune with the Lord. If we realize that God is with us and God is the one under whose care our life is going on, then everything that happens to us is sweet. And that is what the saints wants us to understand. We have a very active mind, and our mind is always wanting us to do things as our mind expects it to be done. Or our mind is always agitating us when things are not happening along with the wishes that we have. But we need to realize that this existence and this creation and this world is under the care of the Lord. And God, the Creator, knows all the ins and outs of what God has created. And when we believe in God wholeheartedly, when our faith in God is tremendous, then we know that everything that is happening is under the divine harmony. It's under the divine care. And if it's under God's care, then nothing can be wrong. Then it has to be correct. Then it has to be the right thing that should be happening. And so we as human beings many times don't understand that, because our mind is so strong that it is forcing us to be a certain way, because that's what the inputs to the mind are. And that's what we think is right for us. And this is why there's turmoil in our life. This is why there's anger in our life. This is why we're always perturbed. This is why we cannot find stability, even though our life is more stable than anything else that can happen. You know, when a part of God is within us, then how can anything be wrong? It's just like our interactions with others in this world. Because we live in this world, we have to interact with others. We have responsibilities, we have to support ourselves. And so our interactions are such where, our thinking and the thinking of others don't match. And when that happens, then all kinds of difficulties start to come in our life. And so the key to a spiritually enlightened life is to be able to rise above that. If we remain in the petty nuances of life, then that's where we will be. Then day in and day out we'll think, oh, this person did this and that person did this, and people at work are not liking me, because we feel like we have to be right in all cases. We do not have enough faith in God to let God run our lives.